Now I want you to imagine a scenario. You have your phone, suddenly starts ringing, and there's an unknown number that's flashing on screen. Now you don't know who this person is, but you pick up anyway. And you put the phone to your ear. And the person on the other side starts saying, "Hello sir, my name is Ram and I'm calling with regards to blah 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 blah." What is the first thought that comes into your head? The first thought that comes into your head is, this is spam. This is a random person that knows nothing about me, which is obvious because there's no context, wants to sell me or talk to me about something that I have no interest in, and finally is saying it in the most boring, annoying and cliche way possible. Now, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to actually speak so that other people listen and want to listen to you. And the way we're going to do that, by doing the exact opposite of this call, by creating interest, being relevant, and being different. The thing is, there's this unsaid secret, right? Which I see that a lot of distinguished people don't do. They don't go to a party or a new situation and go to a random person and say, "Oh, how are you doing? What do you do?" These are boring, irritating questions. Nobody wants to answer it. Instead, many of these people are more fun. They go to a random person, especially if they're meeting them for the first time, and they say, "Come, let's do this," which could be something entertaining and exciting that that person has never done. So we need to learn how to create a personality like that, and a personality like that is a function of practice. Practicing 3 to 4 techniques that you will end up repeating very often. Many of those techniques are just the same question asked in a slightly different way. Instead of saying, "What do you do for work?" you should ask these people, "Why did you choose this particular career?" So instead of asking, "Where do you live?" ask them, "Why do you prefer staying in this city?" This allows them to actually answer in a way that makes sense to them. This sort of open-ended question actually allows these people to give out more of their personality. It's a very welcoming way to talk instead of it being one way. In fact, I ask far more fun questions. I ask things like, if you were given $1 million, what would you do? Now, if you're meeting somebody for the first time, you know how awkward a question that is. But I always feel like I get better answers. I become closer to the person, and they also enjoy talking to me because it's not the same, 100th time they're being asked the question of, "What do you do for a living?" Some people are a little bit shy. Usually most will answer, but some people need prompting. So what I do is actually ask them the question, for example, "What would you do with the 1 million? And then if they don't answer or they're shy about answering that question, I would actually answer the question myself. Or I would start or prompt the answer. I would say, "Well, if I were given that sort of money, I would buy a Lamborghini." It need not be true or false, but I'm starting that conversation off. Now, the next thing I've noticed with people who don't have too much practice conversing is that they just overload the other person with information. When given a topic they love, they just go on and on and on and on without understanding those 3 mistakes that the caller in the beginning of the video made. A, the words you're saying are not relevant to the end user. The end user is disinterested, and finally, you are saying it in the same way other people do. Now imagine this jug filled with juice is your information and your knowledge and your interests, and the empty glass is the other person listening to you. Now imagine you start giving this knowledge, you start pouring the juice in, but you keep pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. It's often just going to be information overload. They're going to hear or understand the first 10 or 15 sentences, after which they're going to tune out. Everything else is just going to overflow out. There is no more room to process the information that you have given the other person. What I prefer doing is to actually just fill the glass to a small extent, maybe 10 or 20% of the glass, right? Give them a taste of what you're offering. If they actually like what you put in the glass, if they like the taste of it, then you can start putting in more and more and more. If they don't like your brand of juice, then you can change it. If you were talking about cars and they don't like listening to cars or they have no interest in cars, don't keep going on and on and on about cars. You might think, "Hey, I don't make that mistake," but a lot of people do. Instead, switch the topic to something they like. Now, sometimes that might be as easy as just asking them, "What interests you? What are you most passionate about?" And start talking along that topic. Now, if you don't understand that topic, that means you need to do more reading and learning and research to have at least the ability to speak about a wide range of things And also sometimes keep your ears open to listen to them if you don't have enough information about it. If you're talking to somebody who only knows or understands Formula 1, and maybe you don't have any understanding of it, then maybe you should reverse roles and be the one who listens and learns more. Because the more you learn, and that could be by you traveling and meeting lots of new people, or by reading a lot of books, the more you are able to interact with varied types of people. Do not ever enter interview mode and ask too many questions, as it can be off-putting. Allow the other person to ask questions as well and be a good listener. And be efficient with your speech, right? The next thing is to try and be aware of your shortcomings. A lot of people use filler words like like, right, so, words that don't add any value to the conversation, but words that you're adding in just to stitch other words together. The way to solve this problem is to first become aware of the filler words that you use. If it's or like, for example, I know a lot of people in America use the word like in places where it's not supposed to be used. For example, I was like going out. So the word like there is completely useless. It's a habit you've developed over time to just extend the statement and keep making sense while your brain thinks of the next word. Catch yourself when you use it. Remember, a lot of us make mistakes, but we don't know we make mistakes. So being aware is to find out that you're making mistakes. Go to your friends and tell them, please tell me when I'm making mistakes. A lot of our friends are nice to us. They don't point to us and say, hey, you're making a mistake, because they're afraid of what we'll think, or they're afraid of hurting our feelings. So make it explicit to your friends. Go out to them and tell them, please catch me when I'm using filler words. Once you've been caught enough, you will automatically stop making these mistakes. I had a friend who used to use the word hair instead of here, and he gave me permission to correct him. After I corrected him just 2 or 3 times, he started becoming conscious of that word, and now says the word here always. He's always right about that word because of that little bit of consciousness that I introduced into his brain. Now, he might have hated me for making him conscious at that point, but over the long run, he does thank me. The next thing is to be less conscious about your performance. See, I think a lot of speaking and presenting and conversing with other people is practice. That's why you find that a lot of 30 and 40-year-olds are able to speak to people much easier and much more fluently than younger 18 and 19-year-olds. The more practice you have talking to somebody else, the easier it gets. So I think the big question that's going on in most people's head is, will these people enjoy it? Will they like me? What do they think about me? It's like, in most cases, the speaker is more concerned that the audience will criticize his subject, dress code, maybe the mastery of their knowledge, and even delivery. Now, unless you're doing this on YouTube with hundreds of thousands of people watching, I think in a one-on-one conversation, or even a one-to-many conversation, as long as that many is maybe 5 to 10 people, it should not be a problem. And if you are going to places where people criticize you often, if your friends criticize you often, you should also think about changing your friend circle. Because sometimes the people who get ahead the fastest are the ones with the most empathetic and forthcoming friend group. The next thing is to actually speak slowly. So when I first started speaking Hindi, and for those that don't know, I'm actually a Kannadiga, I'm from South India. When I first started learning Hindi, I tried to speak fast because I saw a lot of these people on TV speaking Hindi very quickly, and I said I must copy them. I must speak fast to seem native, to feel like somebody who knows the language from a long time. And every time I did that, I'd make mistakes. But the minute I learned to start speaking Hindi much slower, I started getting the hang of it. It's like a car, right? You can't just drive a car very fast. You have to first learn to drive the car slowly, learn the controls, and then slowly up the pace. I would recommend you do that, especially if English is not your first language. Lastly, and this is the truth to being different, is to use your authentic self. A lot of people on stage or when they're talking to each other try to be somebody they're not. You say words in a way you heard it on TV, or you try to say things or be things that you're not. I feel the greatest or the best thing you can offer the world is your authentic self. When you are authentic, it is going to piss off a few people. Some people are not going to be pleased with you, but it is you. That authenticity goes a long way in making you different from somebody else. It could be the way you laugh. It could be the way you use words. It could be the way you mix Hindi and English. It could be your own style. Now, if you don't have a style, then that simply means you don't have enough life experience. So just go out, explore the world, meet new people, and create a way or a style for yourself that gives you an authentic self that you can take out of the world and actually prove your difference, right? It comes out automatically. You don't even need to prove it. That's it for me. Bye.